In the dry heart of the Sahel, where endless sand meets only rare and fleeting rain, no one would expect the future of Burkina Faso to be hidden inside the skin of a dragon fruit. But this year, something extraordinary happened. On the very first stormy morning of the rainy season, the skies above Ouagadougou roared with helicopters. Villagers watched in disbelief as sacks were opened midair, scattering thousands of tiny black seeds across the desert and grasslands below. At first, it looked absurd, seeds falling from the sky into soil long thought to be dead. Some called it a waste, a costly gamble in a nation still struggling to fund hospitals and schools. But to Captain Ibrahim Traoré, this was no stunt. It was a mission. A bold experiment in survival and sovereignty. 50 kilograms of dragon fruit seeds, released like living rain onto the barren lands of Burkina Faso. Why dragon fruit? Why not millet, sorghum, or maize, the traditional crops of the region? Traoré's answer carried both scientific wisdom and political strategy. Dragon fruit is not just any fruit, it's a cactus. It thrives in poor soils, survives scorching heat, and demands very little water. It is the fruit of resilience, a survivor in the harshest of climates. But more than survival, dragon fruit carries promise. Around the world, from Paris to Tokyo, it sells for premium prices. By planting it in the Sahel, Burkina Faso wouldn't just fight hunger, it could claim a place in global markets where Africa has long been absent. The timing was key. By scattering the seeds during the brief rainy season, Traoré harnessed the only gift the desert still offered, short but powerful bursts of rain. He knew most seeds would not make it. But in agriculture, survival is about numbers, not perfection. Even if only 10% sprouted, that would still mean tens of thousands of cactus plants growing across the savannas and desert edges. Some would grow into living fences, shielding villages from sandstorms. Others would flower, feeding bees and pollinators. And many would bear fruit, bright pink or yellow treasures, sweet and nourishing, feeding both people and wildlife. But behind this bold agricultural vision lay an even deeper political message. For decades, Burkina Faso's food security has been shaped by foreign aid, shipments of rice and grain, consultants with charts, dependency dressed as assistance. Traoré rejected this. To him, sovereignty meant not only feeding your people, but feeding them with pride. By choosing dragon fruit, a crop seen as exotic and luxurious abroad, he was sending a message to the world: we are not beggars for wheat. We are growers of treasures. Of course, critics were quick to attack. Ministers wondered why not spend the money on irrigation. Donors dismissed it as wasteful theatrics. Western media mocked it as a fruit stunt. But Traoré knew symbols matter as much as results. And the image of helicopters scattering life across the desert was itself a declaration, a promise that Burkina Faso's future would not be written by outsiders, but sown by its own hands. Burkina Faso's fight against drought would not be waged with pity, but with imagination. In villages across the Sahel, reactions to the seed drops were mixed, but undeniably curious. Children rushed into fields, scooping up fallen dragon fruit seeds and planting them near their huts. Elders, skeptical but respectful, wondered aloud if such fruits could ever grow in their land. At least he is trying something new, one farmer said. And that was the heart of Captain Ibrahim Traoré's strategy. Even if the experiment failed in the fields, it had already succeeded in the minds of his people. It proved that leadership could dare. That Burkina Faso could dream beyond hardship. But this was no blind gamble. Traoré had consulted agronomists, who confirmed dragon fruit's potential in dry zones. Pilot farms near Bobo Dioulasso had already shown results. With only minimal irrigation, cactus vines bore fruit within 2 to 3 years. Local farmers were trained in trellising methods and prepared to expand if the scattered seeds took root. Export routes had even been mapped out through Ghana's ports, making it possible for Burkina Faso's harvests to reach European and Asian markets. So why take to the skies? Why scatter seeds by helicopter rather than plant them by hand? The answer was both practical and political. Helicopter seeding was fast, covering thousands of hectares in just days. But it was also unforgettable. Agriculture became spectacle. Photos of seeds raining down from the sky spread across social media with captions like "Seeds of Sovereignty" and "Burkina Faso plants hope from the sky." Within hours, the world was talking, whether to mock or to praise, no one could ignore it. Ecologically, the move carried brilliance. By spreading seeds across varied landscapes, Traore let nature decide where they would thrive, some landing in sandy plains, others in rocky cracks, others in low, moist valleys. Over time, these scattered seedlings could form green mosaics across Burkina Faso's harshest terrains, slowing desertification, feeding pollinators, shading the land, and eventually bearing fruit for both people and wildlife. The costs were enormous: chartered helicopters, imported seeds, training programs, all running into millions. But Traore saw the expense differently. He treated it as an investment in memory, in narrative. Donors had spent billions on aid projects that no one remembered. This spectacle, succeed or fail, would never be forgotten. And in geopolitics, memory itself is power. Leaders who dare are remembered, and remembered leaders attract partnerships. As the rain soaked the earth and the seeds sank into the soil, the world waited. Would dragon fruit vines rise where only thorns once grew? Would Burkina Faso shock the skeptics and export exotic fruits within a decade? No one could say. But one truth was undeniable: Traore had planted more than seeds. He had planted an idea. That Africa's destiny would not be dictated by drought, aid, or despair, but by imagination, courage, and sovereignty. Yes, to outsiders, helicopters scattering dragon fruit seeds over deserts looked like spectacle. But beneath the drama was careful engineering, science, ecology, and politics woven together. Dragon fruit was not chosen at random. Test farms had proven its power: a cactus that thrives in drought, bears fruit for 20 years, and blooms with flowers so large and sweet that bees return to pollinate at night. In a region where pollinators were dying, this fruit could help restore ecosystems while creating new income for farmers. The real challenge was scale. How could a country as vast as Burkina Faso, with limited manpower and scarce resources, turn a small experiment into a nationwide agricultural revolution? The answer came from the skies. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, drawing from his military background, repurposed helicopters once used for border patrols into tools of farming. It was symbolic: the same machines that once defended the nation with weapons would now defend it with seeds. Some generals found the idea eccentric, but to Traoré it was strategy. The rainy season in the Sahel is short, just a few weeks. Planting by hand across thousands of hectares would take months. Helicopters allowed millions of seeds to hit the soil exactly when the rains arrived. Critics dismissed it as wasteful. Random seeding, they argued, would never work. But Traoré countered with simple math: even if only 10% of the seeds survived, tens of thousands of cactus plants would take root. Over time, they would spread naturally, pollinated by bees, reseeding themselves across the land. In a nation with limited manpower, letting nature itself be the farmer was nothing short of genius. But this wasn't just science. It was also politics. By choosing dragon fruit, a crop tied to global luxury markets, Traoré reframed Burkina Faso's image. He wasn't just planting food, he was planting aspiration. Images of farmers harvesting exotic fruit under the Sahel sun told a new story. Burkina Faso was not a victim begging for aid, but a pioneer producing treasures for the world. The psychological impact was immediate. For decades, farmers had been told their land was worthless without foreign fertilizers or imported seeds. The helicopter drops challenged that narrative. "Our soil is not dead," Traoré declared in a national address. "It only needs imagination." Villages began calling the seeds grains of sovereignty. Children collected them eagerly, planting them near their homes and watering them with hope. Whether the fruit grew or not, the belief had already taken root: Burkina Faso could shape its own destiny. And Traoré knew the power of visibility. He invited journalists to film the airdrops live. Drones captured breathtaking footage of black seeds raining down against storm clouds. Social media exploded with captions like, "The day the sky planted hope." Western agencies tried to dismiss it as a stunt, but their criticism only amplified the story. For once, Burkina Faso was setting the narrative, not reacting to it. Behind the spectacle was careful planning. Agricultural scientists had mapped the most promising areas: riverbanks, seasonal wetlands, grazing lands. Ecologists advised on spacing to maintain balance. Local leaders were briefed to rally their communities. Ground teams followed the drops with planting drives, building wooden trellises to help young vines grow. This was not chaos, it was choreography. The geopolitical message was clear. For decades, projects had been imposed from Geneva or Paris, often failing because they ignored local realities. Traore flipped the script. This was Burkinabe-led, Burkinabe-designed, and Burkinabe-owned. Even if it failed, it would fail on their own terms, with dignity. The risks were real. The costs enormous. Foreign embassies mocked it privately. But Traore argued that the greater danger was continuing with the old path, depending on volatile gold exports and fragile food imports. His gamble was not about avoiding risk, but about choosing a risk that built sovereignty instead of dependency. International reaction was split. Some Western headlines sneered, calling it "seeds of madness." But environmental groups praised the bold attempt to fight desertification with cactus crops. Agroecologists highlighted it as a creative response to climate change. In Asia, importers quietly took note. If Burkina Faso could grow dragon fruit at scale, markets in China, Japan, and South Korea would be eager buyers. At home, the story took on a life of its own. Farmers began proudly pointing out new seedlings. Schools taught children how to cultivate dragon fruit. Artists painted murals of helicopters scattering seeds like stars in the sky. Even opposition politicians struggled to criticize the initiative without sounding like they were rooting against national pride. And then, the first signs of success. Green shoots appeared across patches of desert. Strange cactus vines rose on makeshift wooden trellises, their spines glistening under the Sahel sun. In some places, enormous white blossoms opened at night, glowing like lanterns and filling the air with a sweet fragrance. Beekeepers noticed their hives growing heavier. The flowers, blooming when few others did, provided bees with vital nectar. Honey production rose. "These flowers feed not just us," one villager said, "but our companions in the sky." Finally, the first fruits arrived. Small, uneven, but dazzling in the sand, bright pink skins hiding sweet, white flesh speckled with seeds. Curious villagers sliced them open. The taste was refreshing, unlike anything they had eaten before. Children fought over the first slices, their laughter echoing in the desert air.